The lights in the research hub flickered as Evan Merrick stepped inside the silent observation hall. He was only 12, thin and quiet, but his eyes were sharp like someone who noticed things others ignored. His class had finished their tour hours ago, but Evan had slipped away from the group. Something inside him pushed him back to this room, the room with the giant alien feline beast in the glass cage. The creature was called a Rylox. It was taller than a human and covered with smooth night-black fur. Thin glowing lines pulsed across its throat, shifting like soft waves. The scientists said the Rylox made random sound bursts that had no meaning. They all believed it was impossible to understand. Evan was not so sure. When he had walked past earlier with his class, he felt a strange pull inside his mind, like the beast was not just making noise but trying to speak. At the time, some alien students had laughed at him. They were older and looked at Evan like he was too small to know anything important. One of them had joked that the human boy looked more scared than the beast. Evan had stayed silent. But now, standing alone before the glass, he felt no fear, only curiosity. The Rylox shifted its head toward him. Its golden eyes narrowed, watching him with a slow, deep intelligence. Evan stood completely still. The beast made no growl, no sound of threat. Instead, a low, rhythmic pulse hummed from its throat, soft enough that Evan had to step closer to hear clearly. The sound wasn't random. Evan felt that immediately. The pulses rose and fell in careful order, like steps on a path. Long, short, short. Long, short. Long, long, short. He recognized the pattern style instantly because he loved puzzles more than anything. The sound reminded him of waves he had studied while learning simple coding, repeating shapes that carried hidden meaning. He pressed a hand lightly against the glass. The Rylox tilted its head and released another sequence. This one felt slower, almost gentle. Evan's heartbeat quickened. It didn't sound dangerous. It sounded like waiting, calling, asking something he could not yet understand. Evan pulled a small recorder from his pocket. It was a small device he had built himself from broken parts he found in the school workshop. His teachers had called it useless. His classmates had laughed at it. But he had brought it anyway. He switched it on and held it toward the glass. The tiny screen flickered as it captured the pulse lines. The Rylox let out a soft vibration, and the glowing lines on its throat shifted to a brighter blue. Evan had never seen it do that earlier. Maybe others hadn't stayed long enough to notice. Maybe they never listened closely. Maybe everyone was too busy laughing or being scared. He whispered softly, "Are you trying to say something?" The creature's ears twitched like it understood the tone if not the words. Then it released a sharper, quicker pulse that made Evan step back in surprise. The blue glow in its throat turned deeper for a moment and returned to normal. Evan quickly glanced at his recorder and saw the wave pattern. It was different from the others. New structure. New rhythm. Purposeful. He felt excitement build inside him. He didn't know what the pulses meant, not yet. But he knew they meant something. And he was sure no one had taken the time to listen this way before. Other students had only mocked him for staring. Adults had ignored the creature's sounds completely. But here, in the quiet room, Evan felt like he was standing at the edge of something big. He looked back at the Rylox. The beast blinked slowly, its golden eyes calm. It made one last soft pulse, almost like a sigh, and lay down inside the cage. The glowing lines dimmed but didn't fade. It looked peaceful. Not wild. Not angry. Just tired. Evan stepped even closer. He felt a small shiver of wonder. He was only a boy, and no one believed he could understand an alien creature. But now he had proof that the sounds were not random. There was a code. There was a message. And he was the only one who seemed to notice. He whispered, barely audible, "I'm going to figure this out." The Rylox opened one eye as if listening. The pulsing light flickered once, gently. It felt almost like a reply. Evan didn't know what the next day would bring. He didn't know that the simple pulses he recorded tonight would change everything between humans and the Rylox species. Right now he only knew one thing. The strange sounds in the cage were not just sounds. They were the beginning of a language waiting for him to decode. Evan returned to the research hub the next evening with the same quiet determination in his eyes. All day he had waited for the moment he could come back. His teachers thought he was at the library. His classmates didn't even notice he slipped away. But the Rylox's strange pulses kept replaying in his mind like a puzzle he needed to solve. He felt drawn to it, not with fear, but with curiosity that burned stronger than anything else. The moment he stepped into the long hallway, he felt the cool air and the soft humming of machines. Lights blinked across the walls. Everything looked normal, but Evan felt a quiet excitement rise in him. He clutched his small handmade recorder in his pocket as he walked. When he reached the glass chamber, he saw the Rylox awake. The creature lifted its head slowly, like it had been waiting for him. Its golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Evan stopped just a few steps away from the glass, unsure if he should speak or stay quiet. Before he could decide, the Rylox released a short pulse. The glowing lines on its throat shimmered in a soft blue. Evan felt his heart jump. This pulse was different from last night's, shorter and lighter. Almost like a greeting. He took out his recorder and held it up. The screen flickered to life again. The machine beeped softly as it captured each wave and rhythm. Then the Rylox made a longer pulse, deeper than the first, and Evan watched the glowing lines shift in perfect timing with the sound. He whispered, "It's a pattern. You're repeating parts." He didn't know if the creature understood his words, but it watched him with calm focus. Evan sat down on the floor, leaning his back against the wall, and replayed the sounds through the tiny speaker. He listened again and again. The more he listened, the more he saw. The long pulses always happened after two short ones. The glowing lines always brightened on the highest vibration. The low vibrations always came with darker colors. There was order. There was structure. It wasn't noise. It was communication. Evan opened a small holographic notebook from his school bag, a free app he used for writing ideas. Now he filled the screen with wave shapes. He added numbers to each sound. He marked timing between pulses. He studied every tiny detail as though the Rylox was speaking directly to him. While he worked, the creature lay close to the glass, its tail curling slowly. It released another soft series of pulses, quieter this time, almost gentle. Evan recorded them all and he began to map the repeated ones. Every time he replayed a pattern, the Rylox blinked slowly as if confirming something. Evan's excitement grew. He felt like he was slowly lifting the edge of a hidden curtain. Behind it, he sensed a new world waiting. He whispered, "You're not trying to scare anyone. You're trying to talk." The Rylox's ears twitched. Then it gave a short, sharp pulse that made Evan's recorder jump. The glow in its throat flashed brighter. Evan leaned forward. This sound was strong but not angry. It felt important. He replayed it twice. The Rylox's throat glowed each time, matching the pulse. Evan realized something. "You're responding. You're reacting to the playback." He tried playing one of the earlier soft pulses. The Rylox did not react. But when he played the new sharp one again, the creature repeated it immediately. Evan felt a thrill rush through him. This was not random anymore. This was connection. For the first time, he felt confident enough to speak louder. "I think this one means attention? Or yes. Or maybe repeat," he said softly. The Rylox made one more of the same sharp pulse, as if agreeing with his guess. Evan looked at his notebook and a smile slowly formed across his face. He had unlocked the first clue. He didn't know what the word meant yet, but he knew the pattern had meaning. And the creature understood when it was replayed. He felt the weight of that realization settle into his chest. He wasn't just listening to a creature. He was listening to someone. Outside the glass chamber, a faint echo of voices drifted from down the hall. Evan tensed, afraid someone might come in and stop him. The Rylox noticed his fear and released a soft, low pulse. The glow turned gentle again. It was the kind of sound a friend might make to say everything was fine. Evan whispered, "Don't worry. I'll come back tomorrow. I'll learn more. I promise." He stood slowly, gathering his recorder and his notes. The Rylox's eyes followed him until he reached the door. Just before he stepped out, the creature released a tiny pulse, barely audible, like a quiet goodbye. Evan turned and smiled. He didn't know how far this would go. He didn't know he was taking the first steps toward the first true human-Rylox communication. But he did know one thing. He was the boy who listened. And the Rylox had started listening back. Evan returned the next afternoon with a new idea forming in his mind. He had barely slept, his thoughts full of glowing throat lines, rising pulses, repeating patterns, and the one sharp sound the Rylox always repeated. He felt something important was close, like he was about to step into a moment no one had ever reached before. The hallway leading to the glass chamber felt longer than usual. His hands were a little shaky, not from fear but from excitement. He carried his recorder, but this time he had added a tiny speaker upgrade. If he was right, he could send a pulse back to the creature, one he built from the patterns he heard. He stepped inside the chamber room and froze for a moment. The Rylox was already awake and sitting upright. Its golden eyes were fixed on the door as if waiting for him. Evan took a slow breath and walked closer. The creature released a soft pulse. The glow on its throat brightened slightly. Evan had heard this one before. It was the gentle sound the Rylox often made when he entered. He wondered if it meant something like welcome or calm. he whispered, I'm here. The creature blinked slowly, and Evan felt a strange comfort in that simple motion. He set his bag down and pulled out the upgraded recorder. He replayed one of the older patterns he had mapped, a soft short sequence. The Rylox watched but did not respond. Evan then played the sharp pulse it had responded to yesterday. The Rylox reacted instantly, repeating it with a slightly stronger vibration. Evan had expected this, but seeing it again made his heart race. Okay, he whispered. So we can match one sound. That's a start. He sat on the floor again, cross-legged, facing the glass. The creature lowered itself as well, resting its large paws near the barrier. Its tail curled calmly behind it. Evan lifted the recorder and activated his new feature, a custom-built pulse tone. He had been working on it all night, building it from layered wave shapes he hoped matched the Rylox's language structure. He pressed play. A long soft pulse sounded through the tiny speaker. The Rylox's ears twitched. Its golden eyes widened slightly. Its throat glowed brighter for a moment, then faded. No response came. Evan held his breath. He tried again, this time adjusting the pitch down. The room filled with the gentle sound once more. And this time the Rylox responded. It released a long soft pulse of its own, almost identical to Evan's version, but smoother, natural, filled with the creature's deeper voice. The glowing lines pulsed in calm rhythm. Evan felt his chest tighten with excitement. He laughed softly under his breath. That means something, he whispered. That one means something. He tracked the pulse shape on his recorder and compared it to others he had captured. It appeared in a few earlier sequences. Always at the beginning. Always gentle. A greeting maybe. Or peace. He tried the sound again, pushing the speaker closer to the glass. The Rylox repeated it once more, then added a shorter pulse afterward, one he had also recorded before. Evan's eyes lit up. The creature wasn't just repeating. It was replying. He played the long soft pulse again, followed by a short pulse he guessed could mean calm. The Rylox paused, studying him. Then slowly it released a long soft pulse, a short pulse, and another soft one he had never heard from it before. A new sound. A new symbol. A new piece of its language. Evan's entire body tingled with excitement. He recorded it immediately and replayed it, testing if the creature truly meant to teach him. The Rylox responded with the same new pattern again. Evan felt like he was witnessing the first spark of real understanding between their species. Just then, footsteps echoed outside the door. Evan's heart pounded. He quickly lowered the volume on his recorder. He didn't want to explain anything yet, not until he understood more. The Rylox sensed his sudden worry and released a low, soft pulse. The glow dimmed gently like a calming breath. The door opened and a pair of alien researchers walked in. They barely looked at Evan. They checked their tablets, whispered about feeding schedules, and adjusted a sensor near the cage. Evan sat quietly, pretending to take simple notes. One of them muttered, "Still no change. Just random pulses." Evan looked at the Rylox. The creature looked back at him with calm certainty. They knew the truth, this wasn't random at all. When the researchers finally left, Evan waited until the hall was silent. Then he leaned close to the glass again. "I think I understand the first word," he whispered. "I think it means peace." He played the long soft pulse. The Rylox responded instantly, its throat glowing warmly. It placed one paw lightly against the glass. Evan lifted his hand and placed it on the other side. No sound came for several seconds. Only quiet understanding. Then the Rylox released the gentle pulse again, slow and warm. Evan knew the meaning now. He felt it. This was the first real word between them. The first moment of true contact. And it was only the beginning. Evan woke up early the next morning, long before the sun reached the tall windows of the academy dorms. His mind was full of the new pulse the Rylox had given him. A sound it had never made before. A sound it had shared only after he sent the greeting pulse. It felt like trust. It felt like a step forward, something deeper than simple copying. He hurried back to the research hub, his recorder clutched tightly in his hands. Today he wanted to understand that new pulse. He wanted to know what the creature was really trying to say. When he entered the chamber room, the Rylox was already awake. Its golden eyes turned toward him immediately. The glowing lines on its throat brightened just a little. Evan smiled softly. It felt like a greeting now, like a quiet hello made only for him. He sat down close to the glass and replayed the last pulse the creature had taught him. A slow rising tone followed by a sharp drop. The Rylox blinked once, then repeated it exactly. Evan recorded it again, comparing both waves. "You're trying to tell me something?" he whispered. The Rylox released the same pulse but added a second one afterward. Evan had heard that second pulse before, short, fast, and brighter. But usually, it appeared only in long chains of sounds. Now it came alone right after the new one, almost like the two belonged together. He replayed the pair. The Rylox repeated them. Evan leaned forward, excitement building. The two pulses together created a rhythm that felt different from everything before. Not greeting. Not calm. Not simple reply. It felt like a request. Evan opened his notebook and began searching the patterns he had recorded earlier. He found the second pulse inside a longer sequence from 2 days ago. That sequence had repeated many times, almost like the Rylox kept trying to send it during the day when the researchers were around. But they never listened. Evan replayed the old sequence carefully. The Rylox lifted its head and stood up, pacing slowly in the cage. The glowing lines on its throat brightened with each sound. Evan felt a strange chill. This was not the calm greeting pulse. This was something else, something important. He whispered, "Is this a message?" The Rylox stopped moving. It looked straight at him. Then it released the sequence again, slowly this time like it wanted him to catch every detail. And at the end it added the new pulse. A final note that made the glowing lines flare bright blue. Evan's eyes widened. The careful rhythm. The repeated parts. The clear structure. It wasn't just language. It was information. He checked the wave patterns again, comparing the long shapes and the spacing between each. Suddenly it clicked. The rhythm wasn't random. It matched something he recognized from basic navigation classes. Coordinate timing. The pulses followed the same structure star maps used to express direction and distance. The rise and fall of the tones mapped the angles. The sharp short pulse marked the end. And the new pulse, at the end of the entire sequence, marked the destination point. The Rylox was giving him coordinates. Evan looked up at the creature, shocked and breathless. "You want to go home?" The Rylox placed its paw gently against the glass, releasing a low, soft pulse. Not a greeting. Not calm. Something heavier, almost sad. Evan felt his chest tighten. He whispered, "You've been trying to tell everyone, but no one understood." The creature gave a faint hum, the glow on its throat dimming slightly. Evan had heard that hum before. It was always quiet. Always mixed inside long sequences. Maybe a sign of longing or loss. He pressed his hand against the glass, matching the creature's paw. "I understand. I'll help you." But at that moment, hurried footsteps filled the hallway. Evan jerked his hand back as two alien scientists entered with worried expressions. They whispered to each other while tapping quickly on their tablets. One of them said, "The Rylox is repeating the same pulse pattern again. Still no meaning." Evan's cheeks heated. They had walked right past the truth for months. He opened his notebook and quickly closed it, hiding his notes. The scientists ran diagnostics, adjusted scanners, then left with tired sighs. They never once looked at Evan. They never once listened to the pulses. When the room was quiet again, Evan turned to the Rylox. "I think your message is a location. A place important to you." The Rylox released the new pulse again. The glowing lines flickered like a heartbeat. Evan checked his notebook once more. His guesses were not perfect, but he knew one thing with full certainty. This creature had been calling for help. Not roaring. Not threatening. Calling. The message was a secret no one heard until now. Evan stood up, feeling a strange bravery inside him. "I'll translate the full sequence tonight. I'll find out where it leads. I won't let your message be ignored anymore." The Rylox lowered its head slowly, releasing a pulse that felt like gratitude, soft, warm, and steady. As Evan walked out of the room, he felt a new weight on his shoulders. Not a burden but a responsibility. The creature had trusted him enough to share its secret. And he would not fail it. For the first time, a human had cracked the code of a Rylox message. And that message was the beginning of everything that would come next. Evan stayed up most of the night studying the long pulse sequence. He replayed every part slowly, matching each rise and fall of the sound to the shapes on his screen. The more he studied, the more the pattern revealed itself. It was not just a location. It was a full request. A call. A message that had been ignored for months. By morning he knew exactly what it meant. It was asking for contact with its pride. A group. A family. A home. Evan felt a mixture of excitement and fear. He was only a child. No one listened to him in class, so how would anyone listen to him about this? But he also felt something stronger than fear, responsibility. The Rylox had trusted him. He had heard a voice no one else had cared to hear. He walked into the research hub with tired eyes but a steady step. As he entered the chamber room, the Rylox lifted its head immediately. Its golden eyes glowed with hope, like it already sensed he had learned something important. Evan sat down close to the glass and whispered, "I understand your message. I know where you want to go." The Rylox released a soft, rising pulse. The glowing lines brightened. Evan pressed his hand to the glass again. He opened his recorder and played the coordinates back toward the creature. The Rylox reacted instantly, its throat lighting up with bright blue and gold. It paced the cage slowly, releasing several happy pulses that Evan had never heard before. They were quicker, lighter, almost joyful. Evan smiled. "I'll tell them. I'll show everyone." But when he left the chamber and walked into the main hall, he saw a group of scientists talking. They were arguing quietly about the Rylox, calling its language useless noise. One of them suggested moving it to a different wing. Another said communication research was going nowhere. Evan felt something hot rise in his chest. He couldn't stay quiet anymore. He stepped closer and said, "You're wrong. The pulses have meaning." The scientists turned toward him, confused. One raised a brow. "What are you talking about, boy?" Evan lifted his recorder and displayed the translated wave patterns. "This is a message. It's not random. It's coordinates." Then he played the complete sequence in the quiet hallway. For a moment, no one moved. The scientists stared at the wave shapes. They compared them to navigation charts. Their eyes widened. Their voices dropped. One of them whispered, This matches a star system near the Rylox origin point." Another slowly said, "We never thought the creature could communicate like this." Evan spoke simply but with confidence he didn't know he had. "It tried. You didn't listen." The room fell silent. Then everything happened fast. More researchers were called. More charts opened. More recordings were checked. Evan was allowed back into the chamber with a full team behind him. Everyone watched closely now as he replayed the greeting pulse. The Rylox answered instantly. The scientists gasped. It was the first time they had seen the creature respond calmly to any human sound. Evan replayed the longer sequence. Again the Rylox responded, repeating the coordinate message clearly and slowly, its throat glowing bright. No one could deny it anymore. The lead researcher turned to the group and said, "The boy cracked the first true Rylox communication pattern." Evan felt his cheeks warm, but he couldn't stop smiling. Within days, a special communication bridge was built, using Evan's pulse translations. The Rylox's message was sent out into space, toward the coordinates it had shared. The room was full of tension as everyone waited. And then, a reply arrived. A faint series of pulses came from deep space, matching the same language. The Rylox raised its head, releasing a pulse Evan had never heard before. It sounded like relief. Evan watched with wide eyes. "They heard you." The creature placed its paw on the glass. Evan placed his hand on the other side again. Later that month, a peaceful contact pod from the Rylox species arrived. Their pulses were strong and confident, and now humans could understand them. All because of one small boy who listened when no one else did. Evan became the youngest xenolinguist ever recorded. The scientists invited him to join the communication team. Students who once mocked him now looked at him with awe. But Evan didn't care about attention. The only thing he cared about was that the Rylox was finally understood. On the day the creature was prepared for transport home, Evan stood by its glass chamber one last time. The Rylox released a warm, soft pulse, the same one he had learned on the first day of real contact. Evan whispered back, "Peace?" The Rylox's throat glowed bright gold. It added one more pulse, slow and gentle. Evan checked it on his recorder. He already knew what it meant. Friend. The transport lights activated, and the chamber began to open. Evan stepped back, watching with a full heart. He had been the only human who heard the unheard. And that small act changed everything.